Hey, Christina, how's it going?
Good.
Good. My name's Joe. I'm going to be your counselor. It's nice to finally meet you in person.
Thanks, you too.
Before we get started, there's a couple housekeeping things that we need to take care of,
Okay.
just really quick.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm sure that you knew this, but the practice that I use here is reality therapy. Do you know a lot about that? I know it says it on my website, but a lot of people come in here and they don't really know what I'm talking about. So do you have any questions on that first?
So yeah, obviously I researched a bit on your website and just through Google
Right.
before I came in, but I did have a question about choice theory.
Sure.
I read a little bit about it, but I was kind of confused about it, so I was wondering if you could just
Absolutely.
give me like a quick overview before we started.
Great. So I'm glad you did some research
Yeah.
beforehand. But so control theory is kind of the basis of reality therapy. It kind of is all based on this control theory. And what it is I can't force you to have the same opinions and beliefs that I have, and I can't force you to do anything about them.
Mm-hmm.
You have total control of your own thoughts, opinions, and actions, as do I.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't force mine on you and make you do things, just as you can't force me to do those things.
Okay.
When you do things like that, it's called the external control psychology, and that's really forcing people to believe the same way that you believe.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you
and
so
we'll get
much.
into more detail later.
Okay.
As we go through it, as it comes up, I'll explain it to you a little bit more. But that's
Okay.
kind of a brief overview.
Okay. Yeah.
The second thing is this consent form. So I want to have you sign this, and what this is, it has information about like the best way to reach me, some billing information, and then at the bottom of it, it is talking about confidentiality. And so what happens is in our sessions are going to stay in our sessions. I'm not going to go out and talk to people about it. But at the same time, if I think that you are a threat to yourself or someone else, I do have to report it by law. So as long as you understand that.
Yeah.
All right, great. So I want to have you sign the bottom of this,
Cool.
and then we'll keep going.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks.
No problem. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to get to work with you a little bit,
Yeah.
and kind of get to understand where you are at. That's really what this first session is going to be about, is kind of our relationship together and kind of understanding where you're at. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
So I'm a mother.
Okay.
I have a daughter.
Nice.
She's 9, about to be 10.
Wow. That's a fun age.
Yeah, it's good. It's busy.
Mhm.
Definitely busy. I work, and she's very busy with obviously school, hanging out with her friends,
Mhm.
sports, dance, all these extracurriculars. So even when I'm done with work, I'm busy running her around
Sure.
and carpools and things on the weekends. So that's exciting. It's definitely challenging, but I love being a mom.
Mhm.
I just feel like the reason I'm here mainly is because I think she's at this age where she's being influenced by her friends and her peers and social
Sure.
media, and I think that we're having a hard time connecting. Like, we kind of seem to be clashing on things, and I don't know if that's just her age
Mhm.
and how she's kind of developing, but that was kind of my main purpose for coming, kind of some guidance on how to work on our relationship.
Sure. So, just really quick, you just gave me a lot of information to process, and I just want to make sure that I'm getting it correctly. So, you're here today because you want to talk about your relationship with your daughter.
Yeah.
You seem to be clashing a little bit. You're not sure if it's because of her age, or all the different things going on in her life and all her different extracurriculars, or being on social media, things like that,
Right.
and that'll have an influence. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, awesome. So, at home, what's your home life like? Can you talk me through that a little bit?
Sure.
Who's living in the house?
Yeah, so we have a dog,
Cool.
and obviously my daughter. My estranged husband does not live with us.
Okay.
We separated, I want to say, like a year ago,
Sure.
which was definitely hard,
Mhm.
obviously, on our daughter. But, we keep in contact, but not enough, I think.
Okay.
Our relationship's kind of at this place where it is what it is, and I don't think we're going to get back together, but I
Okay.
would love for him to be more of a part of her life.
Mhm.
So that's kind of me also a struggle. I think of the issues we're having is me being a single mom, essentially. So
Sure.
not having two parents in the household, I think, is also contributing to that
Okay.
factor of us fighting all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, does he live in the area?
He's about like 25 minutes away,
Okay,
so
so
not
he's-
too far.
Right. So
But,
okay.
Yeah.
So it's reasonable to have him. He could be around if he needed to.
Right, exactly.
Okay, great. Okay, sure.
Exactly.
Now, what do you do for work? What's your job?
I'm a lawyer.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so I really like that. It definitely keeps me busy.
Mhm.
Every day something new, and I really love what I do, and I'm super passionate about
Mhm.
it. But it takes a lot out of me, and I come home from a long day at the office, and I'm dealing with all these issues that my child is having.
Right.
So that kind of makes it hard for me to get out of work mode and into mom mode.
Sure, absolutely.
So I love what I do. It's just, it definitely takes up a lot of my time and energy.
Sure, and since you're the only one in the house, it's got to be difficult to work all day, come home and then work with your daughter all night, doing homework and things like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely have help from, neighbors and other moms and stuff with picking up and dropping off. But when we're in the home, it's just the two of us basically. So that's definitely hard, transitioning from work mode, being this lawyer, to being, mom.
Right. So now do you have time to spend, by yourself doing your own thing, or is that kind of tough to come across?
Yeah, kind of tough to come across.
Sure.
Like I said, I'm really busy with work, and then my daughter has dance and sports and all these things going on, so the weekends are kind of taken up by that. So I really don't have a lot of time for myself, which I would love, obviously, but that also is something I think I really need to take time for, because I feel myself burning out, and that's something I would love to be able to do.
Absolutely. So part of reality therapy is really taking that time and finding, we call it positive addictions, and finding something that's good for you that you love to do. So eventually I'm going to give you some homework, and don't get nervous. I know you've been out of school for a while, but I'm going to give you some homework on, things that you can do for yourself, whether it's meditation or whether it's, going on runs, whatever you like to do. But we'll get there. So don't worry about that yet. So I just want to make sure again that I have all the information that you're giving me. Your husband and you are separated, correct? Okay, you're not divorced, right? No. Okay. And he lives close enough where you guys can be in touch and he can be around, but it's not necessarily something that happens a lot. Okay, and you're a lawyer. You talked to me, and you love your job, but it's a lot of time, and you have to lean on, friends and family to help you get your daughter from point A to point B.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Sure. So we can talk a little bit about, if it's okay with you, we can talk a little bit about your relationship with your husband, and kind of the last time you guys interacted.
Okay.
Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the last time I saw him was Christmas.
Okay.
He stopped over Christmas morning after we had opened gifts and just had breakfast. He's seeing someone else now, so it's a little bit awkward. So he kind of didn't stay for too long, but he just dropped off some gifts and, spent some time with my daughter. It was a little bit awkward between us, and I think that she could feel that. But I haven't seen him since then, which was, like 2 months ago. Occasionally we'll text, but nothing crazy. So I would love for him to make more of an effort, or if I could do something to make him want to make more of an effort, which is difficult.
Sure, go ahead. Absolutely. I'm going to stop you right there, though, because this is, remember, we talked about that control theory versus the external control psychology. And you're criticizing his behaviors, but you can't necessarily change those behaviors that he's doing.
Right.
Because that's not how you want to act, but you can't tell him that's how he should be acting.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind as well as you're going through.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's definitely true.
And I am going, as we're wrapping up this session, this session again was just for us to get to know each other a little bit better, kind of understand the problems that you're going through. I am going to give you a little bit of homework.
Okay.
There's this book by Glasser, who is a famous reality therapy theorist. He actually invented reality therapy.
Cool.
And he has a book called Control Theory.
Okay.
So I want you to take a look at that book before we meet next week, so you can kind of get a better idea of what control theory is and how it can better influence your life.
Okay, I can do that.
Awesome.
Okay,
great.
Well, thank you.
No problem.
It's nice to meet you.
You too. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you then.
Great. All right, Christina. Well, welcome back.
Thanks. How are you?
Good. I'm good. How are you?
Good.
First thing I want to address, I realized I didn't address this our last session. I have this pen and piece of paper, or a notebook rather, because I'm writing things down. So if you see me, writing things down or looking down at it, I'm just referring back to things that we've talked about. So don't think I'm not paying attention to you at all. I am paying attention. I'm just, paying almost too much attention. So I'm writing things down. So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, no big deal.
So I know last time I gave you a little bit of homework. How'd that go?
It was okay. Obviously, I'm super busy, so I didn't have time to finish all of it. I mean, by the time I was in bed reading it, I was falling asleep.
Sure.
But I did take some notes. I just want to bring up some things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things I really liked that it addressed was the 5 basic human needs. So that was cool. Thinking about survival, love, power, freedom, belonging, all these types of things, which is something that I obviously knew, but now kind of thinking about our sessions and things I want to incorporate. I liked that. I also liked when it talked about behavior, how we act, how we think, and our feelings, and also the quality world idea. So it allowed me to kind of think who are the people and the things that I want in my quality world, and that I have in there, and why are they in there, why aren't they in there? So that was for me kind of like self-reflective. So thank you for giving me
Oh,
this.
of course,
It was really helpful, I think.
Awesome, great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you got a lot out of it. I think you kind of have a better understanding of control theory and and reality therapy for sure from that. So I know it's only our second session, but I want to go over our termination.
Okay.
The one thing you need to know is that I'm always going to be here for you, regardless if we're in session or not. I'm only a phone call away at all times. Typically, reality therapy only lasts 12 sessions. We like to do it in short bits, not necessarily long term. But I am available whenever you need to. If you feel like you need more sessions, I'd be happy to book more with you.
Okay, that's good to know.
Don't think that I'm abandoning you or anything. Like, I'm here whenever you need me.
Okay, good to know.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So how has the last week been with your daughter? I want to focus on your daughter a little bit this week.
Okay.
How are things going with that? How is she? How has your fighting been?
So kind of same as before.
Okay.
Work super busy right now, and she's just super busy with tests and group projects and her extracurriculars. Like I mentioned last time, I feel like the thing that we've been struggling with this past couple of weeks, I want to say now, is her bedtime.
Okay.
I mean, she is 9, almost turning 10, but she's still a kid, obviously.
Right.
And as we both know, going to bed at a certain time is important, so you have a great next day. We know that, being adults. But for her, it's a constant battle. It's, her having her phone, her iPad, wanting to watch TV, just silly things like that, and her taking the time to unwind. And it's kind of like, I mention it and she blows up.
Right.
And I find me just giving in or giving up or, yelling at her, punishing her, threatening her, and doing these things that I'm not exactly proud of, but it's all in her best interest, but I'm just having a difficult time, working with her on that.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of hard because I come home from work, we have dinner, she hangs out a little, and then it's time to go to bed. So then the next morning we're kind of in a weird place too because we had a tiff at the end of the night. So that's kind of the big thing I've been struggling with.
So, you're struggling with, your daughter and her bedtime. She seems like a little bit distracted. You want to go to bed because she has all these different technologies, whether it's her phone or her iPad, things like that, that she's playing with, and then doesn't want to go to bed because she's using them.
Right.
She doesn't get to use them all day because she's at school. So, it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So, as you go through and you're arguing with her, what's one thing that you're doing that you think that could be improved upon? Because, and like, how would the outcome be changed?
I think the way I react to things and the way I, use threats almost, which sounds awful, but, I think I need to improve upon how I'm speaking with her and my behavior. Right. I think I definitely need to work on that.
Sure. So, using threats actually goes back to that external control therapy. You're not letting her make her own choices. You're threatening her and you're going to punish her if you're going to sleep, things like that. Yeah. But if you're using control therapy with her, it could change that. One thing that I'm going to have you try to do, if you're okay with it, is, let her choose her own bedtime. Let her go to bed whenever she feels, is appropriate, which I know can be a little nerve-wracking. But there are natural consequences for letting her do that. Things like, she's going to be exhausted next day. If she wants to stay up till 4 a.m., you have to respect her choice in doing that. Okay. And you don't want to force her to go to sleep earlier. Yeah. You know what's going to happen the next day. Right. But she has to learn that on her own. Okay.
That's interesting. An interesting way of looking at it.
Right, where it's the natural consequence rather than punishment. Okay. And she'll kind of learn from that she needs to go to bed earlier. And it might not happen, the first night, but after a week or two, going to bed at 4 a.m., that would be a zombie. So, any person would be. Yeah. So, that's an interesting way of working with that.
Interesting, for sure.
Is that something you'd be interested in trying?
Maybe not 4 a.m., but definitely letting her go to bed a little later and seeing how tired she is. I could definitely work with something like that. That's it. I would never have thought to have done it that way. Right. So, I mean, it makes sense.
Right. So, I'm not going to let you, you're obviously going to make those decisions for yourself, kind of decide when you want her, whatever you feel is necessary. Right. I'm just here to suggest. Yeah. I'm not here to, tell you how to do things. Right. But that's, an option. Okay. Thank you. Absolutely. No problem. So we want to talk a little bit this week also about setting goals. Okay. Whether it's, the immediate future or just, improving relationships. What are some goals that you could come up with?
I think one is for sure, like I mentioned in our first session, my husband making time where, he can spend more time with my daughter, being more present. I want her to have a good relationship with him. So, making him part of the family again would be a nice way.
Okay, sure. Absolutely. What about goals with your daughter? Anything you could think of?
Goals with her? I mean, I think what we need is desperately some quality time together outside of home and homework and rules and things like that. So
Absolutely.
I think that we need some like mom-daughter time for sure.
Great. Okay.
And then along with that, having mom-daughter time, but me also having my own personal time.
Right,
I think like
right.
we mentioned last time, like it's so hard to, find those hours in the day. So I would love to, if I can, take the time to do something small for myself, even something simple like going on a walk or, anything.
So what, something that you're interested in doing, that we could turn into one of those positive addictions, which we talked about last time. Whether it's, a physical activity, like going on a walk, like you said, or, going to some sort of fitness class. What's something that you could think of that you'd like to make time for?
I think I would love to try like a beginner's yoga class to like see if I can test it out. I mean, I know a lot of people love it, the meditation aspect, the fitness aspect of it. I might not be the best person in the class, but I think that's something I've wanted to try for a while and get into. So that could be a goal for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, based on the goals that you just told me, I want to give you a little bit more homework.
Okay.
Again, like with reality therapy, like homework is a big part, coming back and reporting to me things that I'm telling you to do.
Okay.
So the homework I'm going to give you this week is I want you to reach out to your husband.
Okay.
I want you to, plan something with you, your daughter, and your husband, whether it's to go somewhere, whether it's a movie or a dinner, something where she feels like the whole family's back together again.
Okay.
And see how if her, disposition changes a little bit.
Okay.
And I think it'd be good for you and your husband, maybe to start working things out and kind of get back to that comfortable place where you can be comfortable around each other.
Okay.
I also want you to reach out and kind of do some research on one of these activities, whether you said yoga, find a yoga class in your area and make time and, try to go to one session this week.
Okay.
You think that's something you can do?
It's a lot, but I mean, I'm willing to make a change.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that sounds great.
Great. So that's all we have planned for this week. So next week, will be our last session. We talked about termination a little bit before. We'll talk more about it next week.
Okay.
And I'm excited to hear about how your week went.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Great.
Thanks.
No problem. All right, Christina. Well, welcome back to our last session here.
Thanks.
It's been great to work with you. I hope that you feel the same way.
I do. Thank you so much for everything.
Of course. I want to talk a little bit about the homework that I gave you last time.
Okay.
How'd that go? Talk to me a little bit about that.
So I did go to a yoga class.
Okay.
That was really great. I mean, I wasn't the best one in the room.
Right.
But it was nice for me to just take some time out of the house and out of work. So I loved that.
Great.
I did reach out to my husband. I wasn't personally comfortable doing something with the three of us and, like acting like everything was fine.
Sure.
I was one big happy family. So actually when I went to yoga, I arranged for the two of them to go to the movies.
Great.
So it worked out and she was ecstatic
Great.
and it was great. So that was really nice.
Great. Again, reality therapy, it's really, you're in charge of your own decisions and you're deciding your own, feelings and behaviors. So, if you don't feel comfortable, doing that, totally fine, totally your call.
Right.
So I'm glad that something worked out.
Yeah.
I'm also glad about that you went to the yoga class.
Yeah.
Those positive addictions are very important. So keep going, and if you find maybe something would be a better fit, totally explore different options. But finding something that's going to help your mind and body connect the two of those is very important.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you enjoyed the class.
Thanks.
And maybe one day you'll be the best in the class. Who knows?
Maybe. We'll see.
We'll see. I also want to talk to you about your daughter's bedtime.
Yeah.
How's that going?
I mean, a little bit better.
Okay.
I did try. It took me a little bit of thinking to try it. I did let her, we spoke about it, and I said, you can choose your own bedtime.
Great.
And, she ended up falling asleep before 4 a.m., which was
Good.
nice. And she was a little bit tired during the next day.
Uh-huh.
And, as we did it for a few more days, she kind of was, getting the hang of things. So I think it was better than me yelling and threatening and punishing. It's definitely a different way of looking at it, and it's unique. I don't know if it would work for everyone, but, it did work for me in my situation. So I thought that was really helpful.
Right. You kind of apply that to different situations, whether she's, if you're making dinner, she doesn't want to eat it, well, that's the dinner that you made.
Right.
So that it's kind of things like that where it's a natural consequence.
Right.
Versus punishment.
Right. For sure.
Which is very important.
Yeah, it was great.
Great. Well, so we talked a little bit about termination last time. I do want to remind you again that I'm here for you no matter what. I know this is our last session, but if you have any questions, any comments, or you want to talk to me about anything, I'd be happy to help you or walk you through any situation.
Yeah.
I'm always a phone call away.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for everything.
Of course.
Yeah.
It was great to meet you
Me
and
too.
work with you. and hopefully, everything works out in the future.
Thanks.
No problem.